Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty and watched the stars shift as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The year was 2157, and humanity had finally reached beyond their own solar system to explore the galaxy around them. Jake had been chosen to lead this mission because he was good at talking to people and solving problems without fighting. The Liberty was not a warship, but an exploration vessel built for making contact with alien species. Dr. Lisa Grant worked as the science officer, and she spent most of her time studying the readings from their sensors. Ben Parker handled all communications, and he had learned 17 different alien languages, just in case they met someone who already knew how to talk. They had been traveling for 6 months when their sensors picked up something huge near Proxima Centauri. The readings showed massive ships that were much bigger than anything humans had ever built. Lisa ran the scans 3 times to make sure they were real. The ships were definitely there, and they were definitely not human. Jake ordered Ben to send out a peaceful greeting message in multiple languages. They waited for 2 hours before getting a response. The aliens called themselves Calthurans, and they wanted to meet at a space station called Harmony Point. Jake had never heard of this station, but their star maps showed it was real, and it was in neutral space between different alien territories. The journey to Harmony Point took 3 days. When they arrived, Jake could see that the station was ancient and had been built by some species that was much older than humans. The Caltharian ships were already there waiting for them. Each ship was 5 times larger than the Liberty, and they glowed with strange energy that made the hull plates vibrate. High Commander Zexthul came aboard the station to meet with the human delegation. He was tall and covered in green scales that looked like armor. His eyes were yellow, and they seemed to look right through Jake when they talked. Zexthul spoke perfect English, which surprised everyone until he explained that the Caltharans had been watching human radio signals for 50 years. The first meeting did not go well. Zexthul asked many questions about human technology and military strength. When Jake showed him videos of human spaceships and weapons, the alien commander started making a sound that Ben realized was laughter. Zexthul said that human fusion drives were primitive, and their energy weapons were like toys compared to what real space powers used. Lisa tried to explain that humans were new to space travel and were still learning about galactic civilization. Zexthul nodded and said this was exactly why humanity needed protection from more dangerous species. He offered to make Earth a protectorate world under Caltharian control. In exchange for this protection, humans would have to follow Caltharian laws and give them access to Earth's resources. Jake politely declined the offer and explained that humans valued their independence. He said they would rather learn about the galaxy as free people than as subjects of an empire. This seemed to amuse Zexthul even more. He told Jake that independence was a luxury that weak species could not afford in a dangerous galaxy. The Caltharian commander explained that his empire controlled 17 star systems and had the most advanced military in this region of space. He said they had quantum tunneling drives that could move ships instantly across vast distances. Their weapons could tear holes in reality itself and destroy entire fleets in minutes. 3 other species had rejected Caltharian protection in recent years, and all 3 worlds had been conquered within months. Jake listened carefully to everything Zexthul said, but he did not change his answer. Humans would remain independent and find their own way among the stars. The meeting ended with handshakes and polite words, but Jake could see something cold in the alien's yellow eyes. On the journey back to Earth, Jake sent coded messages to Admiral Susan Clark at military headquarters. He reported everything they had learned about Caltharian technology and military strength. The numbers were not good for humanity. The Caltharans had bigger ships, better weapons, and technology that was centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. Admiral Clark had been preparing for this possibility ever since humans first detected alien signals. She knew that not every species they met would be friendly, and some might see humans as easy targets. Clark had spent years building secret defenses and developing new weapons that the public knew nothing about. When the Liberty reached Earth, Jake was called to a meeting with the Planetary Defense Council. Admiral Clark showed him intelligence, reports about the 3 species that had rejected Caltharian offers. The Zentari had been bombed from orbit until their cities were ash. The Velkesh had fought bravely, but their entire fleet was destroyed in a single battle. The Morian collective had surrendered after watching the other two worlds fall, but they were still treated as conquered people. Clark told Jake that humanity would not suffer the same fate. She had been building defensive networks throughout the solar system and developing new technologies that might give them a chance against superior alien forces. Most importantly, she had been preparing the human military for a war that might decide the fate of their entire species. Meanwhile, Zexthul returned to the Caltharian homeworld and reported to the High Council about his meeting with the humans. He described them as a typical primitive species that had developed space travel, but not the wisdom to understand galactic politics. The council members found it amusing that such a young species would reject their generous offer of protection. The Caltharian High Council decided that humans needed a demonstration of superior force to help them make better decisions. They approved a limited military action designed to show humanity the futility of resistance. Fleet Admiral Kexrian was given command of the Third Fleet and ordered to secure human surrender with minimal damage to their infrastructure, as the Caltharian War Fleet prepared to depart for human space. Admiral Clark received word from her intelligence networks that enemy ships were massing near the border. She activated defense protocols that had been in place for years and sent coded messages to commanders throughout the solar system. The message was simple but clear. The test was about to begin. Jake Morrison looked out at the stars from his apartment on Luna and wondered if humanity was making the right choice. The Caltharans seemed confident that their technology would make any human resistance pointless. But Jake had learned something important during his years in space. Humans had a way of surprising people who underestimated them. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine whether humanity would join the galaxy as free people or as conquered subjects. Neither side truly understood what they were about to face, but both were convinced that their victory was certain. 6 months passed after the meeting at Harmony Point, and the Caltharian Third Fleet finally arrived at the edge of human space. Fleet Admiral Kexrian commanded 50 warships, including the massive dreadnought Void Render that served as his flagship. The ship was 3 kilometers long and mounted weapons that could crack planets in half. Kexrian had fought in 12 different campaigns and conquered 9 species for the Caltharian Empire. He expected this mission to be quick and easy since humans had such primitive technology. His orders were to demonstrate Caltharian superiority and force human surrender with minimal destruction to valuable infrastructure. The first contact with human forces happened near Jupiter when Commander Ryan Davis was leading a routine patrol in his squadron. The USS Chicago, USS Denver, and USS Phoenix were conducting standard reconnaissance when their sensors detected the massive alien fleet approaching from deep space. Commander Davis had been briefed about the possibility of Caltharian attack, but seeing 50 enemy warships on his screens was still a shock. He ordered his ships to maintain distance and gather intelligence about enemy capabilities while sending urgent reports back to Earth Command. The Caltharans detected the human ships immediately, and Kexrian decided to make an example of them. He ordered 3 cruisers to intercept and destroy the human patrol to show that resistance was futile. The alien ships moved with impossible speed using their quantum tunnel drives. The USS Denver was the first to die when Caltharian plasma lances tore through its hull like paper. The energy beams were so powerful that they vaporized half the ship, instantly. Captain Rodriguez and his crew of 200 people died before they could even send a distress signal. The USS Phoenix tried to escape, but the Caltharian ships were too fast. Commander Williams ordered all power to engines, but the alien vessels appeared directly in front of them, using their teleportation technology. The Phoenix exploded in a ball of white fire that could be seen from the other human ship's commander. Davis in the Chicago was the only one who managed to escape, and that was only because the Caltharans let him go. Kexrian wanted at least one human ship to return to Earth with news of what had happened. Davis's ship limped back to Mars with critical damage, and a crew that had seen the future of human resistance, Admiral Clark, received Davis's report while she was commanding the combined defense fleet from her flagship USS Defiant. She had 30 ships under her command, which was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Clark knew it would not be enough against 50 Caltharian warships, but she had to try. The Battle of the Red Planet began when the Caltharian fleet reached Mars orbit and demanded immediate human surrender. Admiral Clark responded by ordering her ships to attack formation and engaging the enemy at maximum range. She hoped that human missiles and energy weapons might find weaknesses. In alien defenses, the human fleet fought with everything they had, but Caltharian technology was simply too advanced. Their shields absorbed human weapons fire without any visible damage, while their plasma cannons reached across impossible distances to tear human ships apart. The USS Boston was destroyed in the first exchange of fire, followed quickly by the USS Miami and USS Seattle. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Wright commanded a fighter squadron launched from the carrier USS America. She led 24 pilots in a desperate attack against a Caltharian cruiser, hoping to find weak points in its armor. Her fighters moved fast and used every trick they knew, but alien point defense systems tracked them perfectly. Wright managed to get close enough to launch all her missiles at the cruiser's engine section. The explosion actually damaged the alien ship and sent it spinning out of formation. This small victory gave the human fleet hope, but it cost Wright her life when Caltharian fighters swarmed her position. The data from Wright's attack was transmitted to Admiral Clark before the fighters were destroyed. The information showed that Caltharian shields operated on specific frequencies and might be vulnerable to certain types of weapons. Clark ordered this intelligence to be sent to all human ships and research stations. Despite the breakthrough, the human fleet was being destroyed piece by piece. Admiral Clark had lost 20 ships in 2 hours of fighting, and the Caltharians had barely taken any damage. She made the hard decision to order a fighting withdrawal back to Earth before her entire force was wiped out. The retreat was covered by the heavy cruiser USS Texas under Captain Morrison's brother, Lieutenant Colonel Jack Morrison. The Texas held off pursuing Caltharian ships long enough for the survivors to escape, but paid the price when enemy fire finally overwhelmed its shields and armor. Admiral Clark reached Earth orbit with only 10 ships left from her original 30. The Caltharian fleet followed slowly and confidently, knowing that human resistance was almost broken. Kexrian was pleased with how easy the battle had been, and looked forward to accepting human surrender. High Commander Zexthul sent a message to Earth governments demanding unconditional surrender within 72 hours. He promised that humans would be treated well if they accepted Caltharian rule peacefully. If they continued to resist, he warned that orbital bombardment would begin and continue until all military resistance was eliminated. The message was broadcast on every communication channel so that every human on Earth could hear it. Zexthul explained that the Caltharian Empire was offering humanity a chance to join galactic civilization as a protected species. All they had to do was accept that they were too weak to survive on their own. President Martinez called an emergency session of the World Council to decide humanity's response. Some members argued that surrender was the only rational choice, since continued resistance would lead to the destruction of human civilization. Others insisted that freedom was worth any price, including death. Admiral Clark was asked to give her military assessment of the situation. She told the council that conventional resistance was hopeless, since Caltharian technology was centuries ahead of human capabilities. However, she also said that humanity still had options that the aliens knew nothing about. While the council debated, the Caltharian fleet took position around Earth and began limited bombardment of military installations. Their weapons were precise and devastating, turning army bases and naval facilities into smoking craters. The message was clear. This was just a taste of what would happen if humans refused to surrender. Dr. Lisa Grant was working frantically in her laboratory trying to analyze the intelligence gathered during the battle at Mars. She had been studying Caltharian technology for months and believed she had found weaknesses that could be exploited. Grant sent her findings to Admiral Clark, along with recommendations for new weapon systems. Captain Ben Parker was monitoring alien communications from his station on Luna. He had detected unusual energy patterns in Caltharian transmissions that suggested their ships might be vulnerable to certain types of electronic interference. Parker's discovery would prove crucial in the coming days. As the 72-hour deadline approached, Admiral Clark made final preparations for humanity's real response to Caltharian aggression. The aliens thought they had seen everything humans could do, but they had no idea what was coming next. The real war was about to begin. The roles had completely reversed as human forces took the offensive against the retreating Caltharian fleet. Admiral Clark ordered her ships to pursue the enemy and eliminate them before they could escape to warn their empire about humanity's true capabilities. The hunter had become the hunted in the span of a few hours. Captain Tony Rodriguez commanded the USS Vengeance as it led the pursuit toward the outer system. His ship was equipped with the most advanced AI systems humanity had ever built, and each engagement taught the computer new ways to defeat Caltharian technology. The vessel learned and adapted faster than organic minds could follow. The surviving Caltharian ships tried to regroup near Saturn, hoping to use the planet's rings as cover for their escape. Fleet Admiral Kexrion had lost 30 ships in the solar system, and his remaining 20 vessels were damaged and demoralized. He needed time to repair his fleet and plan a new strategy, but humans gave him no time to recover. Commander Ashley Bell's stealth squadron appeared in the rings like ghosts materializing from nothing. Her frigates used advanced cloaking technology that bent light around their hulls, making them completely invisible to Caltharian sensors. The USS Shadow struck first, emerging from stealth directly behind a Caltharian destroyer and firing its weapons at point-blank range. The alien ship exploded before its crew knew they were under attack. Bell's other ships followed the same pattern, appearing and vanishing like deadly phantoms. Colonel Danny Price commanded a mixed force of conventional warships and AI-controlled drone swarms for the main assault on the Caltharian position. His human crews provided strategic thinking, while the artificial intelligence handled tactical execution with inhuman precision and speed. The drones moved in patterns that confused Caltharian targeting systems. They would scatter in seemingly random directions, then suddenly converge on a single target with devastating effect. The aliens had never faced opponents who could coordinate thousands of individual units as if they were one organism. Dr. Monica Shaw continued her psychological warfare from the command ship USS Liberty. Her team had identified specific frequencies that triggered different fear responses in Caltharian brain chemistry. They could cause panic, confusion, or complete paralysis depending on which signals they transmitted. The mental assault was just as effective as physical weapons. Caltharian crews found themselves unable to think clearly or follow orders as human broadcasts filled their minds with primal terror. Ships that should have been fighting were fleeing in random directions as their crews lost all discipline. The Battle of Saturn's Rings became a masterpiece of human tactical innovation. What should have been a defensive position for the Caltharians turned into a trap as human forces attacked from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ships appeared above, below, and within the ring system, using gravitational slingshots to achieve impossible velocities. Captain Rodriguez brought the Vengeance directly against the Caltharian heavy cruiser, Destruction's Edge, in single combat. The alien ship was larger and more heavily armed, but the human vessel's AI could predict enemy movements and respond faster than any organic pilot could react. The duel lasted only minutes as the Vengeance's adaptive systems learned the patterns of Caltharian weapons and maneuvering. When the enemy ship fired its plasma cannons, the human vessel was already moving to avoid them. When it tried to escape, the Vengeance anticipated the direction and cut off its retreat. Commander Bell's stealth ships continued their hit-and-run attacks throughout the battle. The USS Phantom disabled a Caltharian battleship's engines, while the USS Wraith destroyed another vessel's weapon systems. The aliens could not defend against enemies they could not see or predict. General Collins coordinated the assault from his asteroid base, while monitoring the effectiveness of human weapons against Caltharian defenses. His nanite swarms had adapted to neutralize enemy shields completely, and were now working on ways to disable their quantum tunnel drives. The breakthrough came when Dr. Martinez's nanites successfully infiltrated a Caltharian engine core and learned how their teleportation technology actually worked. The information was immediately transmitted to all human ships and incorporated into their tactical systems. Fleet Admiral Kexrion watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to know his thoughts before he had them. Every strategy he tried was countered before it could be implemented. Every weapon he fired was avoided or neutralized by impossibly advanced defensive systems. The Caltharian commander finally understood the true horror of what his empire had awakened. Humans did not just fight to survive. They evolved during combat, becoming stronger and smarter with each engagement. They turned every challenge into an opportunity to grow more dangerous. As his flagship Void Render drifted powerless through Saturn's rings, Kexrion received a transmission from Admiral Clark, offering terms for surrender. The human commander's voice was calm and professional, as she explained that further resistance was pointless and would only result in more unnecessary deaths. The remaining Caltharian ships were surrounded by human forces that had appeared from seemingly empty space. Stealth vessels, AI-controlled drones, and heavily armed warships formed a perfect sphere around the aliens. Escape was impossible, and continued fighting would be suicide. Some Caltharian captains chose to fight to the death rather than surrender to a species they had considered primitive only hours before. Their ships were destroyed quickly and efficiently by human weapons that had learned exactly how to penetrate their defenses. Others accepted Admiral Clark's offer and powered down their weapons. These ships were boarded by human marines who secured them without violence. The crews were treated well, but kept under guard while intelligence teams studied their technology and gathered information about the Caltharian Empire. Captain Jake Morrison led one of the boarding parties onto the disabled flagship. He found Fleet Admiral Kex Ryan on the bridge staring at displays that showed the complete destruction of his mighty fleet. The alien commander looked up at Morrison with something like respect in his yellow eyes. Kex Ryan spoke slowly, in perfect English, as he asked how humans had hidden such advanced capabilities during their diplomatic meetings. Morrison explained that humanity had learned to never reveal their full strength to potential enemies. The appearance of weakness had been carefully crafted misdirection. The Caltharian admiral nodded in understanding as he realized how completely his species had misjudged these newcomers to galactic civilization. Humans had not just survived first contact with a superior military force. They had turned the engagement into a comprehensive defeat of an empire that had never known failure. As the Battle of Saturn's Rings ended, Admiral Clark received reports that more Caltharian fleets were approaching the solar system. The Empire had detected the loss of their third fleet and was sending reinforcements to investigate. The real war was just beginning, but now humans held captured Caltharian technology and had prisoners who could provide intelligence about enemy capabilities and tactics. More importantly, they had proven to themselves that advanced alien technology could be defeated by human ingenuity and adaptive thinking. The solar system that the Caltharans had expected to conquer in a few days had become a graveyard for their ships and a proving ground for human military innovation. As Admiral Clark prepared for the next phase of the conflict, she knew that humanity would never again be underestimated by any alien species. 6 months after the Battle of Saturn's Rings, Admiral Clark stood on the bridge of her flagship USS Unity as it led a massive human fleet toward the Caltharian homeworld of Kethmora. The tables had turned completely, and now it was humanity that possessed overwhelming technological superiority. The human fleet consisted of 50 advanced warships equipped with AI systems that had evolved far beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. Each vessel could think, learn, and adapt faster than any organic crew, while maintaining perfect coordination with every other ship in the formation. Captain Jerry Walsh commanded the USS Constitution as it led the blockade of the Caltharian capital system. His ship's quantum computers could process tactical information at speeds that made Caltharian technology look primitive. What had once seemed like magic to humans was now outdated compared to their own innovations. The Caltharans had sent 3 more fleets to human space over the past months, but each one had been defeated more easily than the last. Human forces learned from every engagement and developed new weapons specifically designed to counter Caltharian tactics and technology. Dr. Kevin Martinez had perfected his nanite technology to the point where the microscopic machines could now rebuild themselves and evolve in real time. They could adapt to any defense system they encountered and find ways to defeat it within minutes of first contact. The liberation of the 3 worlds conquered by the Caltharans became humanity's first major victory beyond their own solar system. Commander Sarah Murphy led the assault on Zentari Prime, where she discovered survivors living in underground cities after their surface had been bombed to ruins. The Zentari people could not believe that anyone had successfully challenged Caltharian military might. When human ships appeared in their skies broadcasting messages of liberation, many thought it was some kind of cruel trick by their oppressors. But the humans proved their intentions by immediately attacking Caltharian garrison forces and destroying their orbital defense platforms. The battle lasted only hours as advanced human weapons systems overwhelmed alien defenders who had grown complacent during years of easy occupation. Similar scenes played out on Velkesh and in the Morian Collective as human forces swept through Caltharian territory like an unstoppable tide. Each victory brought new allies who were amazed that the empire they had feared for so long could be defeated so completely. The freed species began forming the first galactic alliance based on cooperation rather than conquest. The Zentari offered their expertise in planetary engineering, while the Velkesh shared their knowledge of quantum mechanics. The Morians provided advanced manufacturing techniques that helped humans build even better weapons. Captain Rodriguez had been promoted to admiral and now commanded an entire battle group of AI-enhanced warships. His vessels could coordinate their attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously using quantum communication networks that operated faster than light itself. The climactic confrontation began when High Commander Zex Thul requested a final meeting with Admiral Clark under a flag of truce. The proud Caltharian leader who had once dismissed humans as primitive now came as a supplicant, begging for terms that might save his civilization. They met aboard the same space station where first contact had occurred, but this time human ships surrounded the facility while Caltharian vessels waited helplessly nearby. Zexathul entered the meeting room looking defeated and desperate. Admiral Clark offered the Caltharans the same protectorate status they had once offered humanity, but with a crucial difference: protection without subjugation. Human forces would guarantee Caltharian security, but in exchange they would have to abandon their aggressive expansion and join the new Galactic Confederation. Dr. Greg Thompson presented the Galactic Charter that established humanity as the guardian species responsible for maintaining peace throughout this region of space. The document outlined principles of cooperation, mutual respect, and collective defense against external threats. Zexthul read the terms carefully and realized that humans were offering something the Caltharian Empire had never provided to conquered species: genuine partnership rather than domination. The choice was between joining willingly or facing complete destruction. The Caltharian High Council met an emergency session to debate their response to human demands. Some members argued for continued resistance despite their military defeats, while others recognized that further fighting would only lead to their extinction as a species. The debate ended when Admiral Clark demonstrated humanity's ultimate weapon, a nanite swarm capable of dismantling an entire planet down to its component atoms. The demonstration was conducted on an uninhabited world in the Caltharian system, but the message was clear. Captain Jake Morrison found himself standing in the same conference room where he had first met alien representatives over a year ago. Now he wore the uniform of a galactic peacekeeper and carried responsibility for protecting dozens of different species. The transformation was complete when the first Caltharian students arrived at human educational centers to learn about cooperation and peaceful coexistence. Young aliens who had been raised to believe in their species' superiority now studied alongside humans and other liberated peoples. The new Galactic Confederation grew rapidly as word spread that humanity offered protection without conquest. Species that had hidden from Caltharian expansion for centuries emerged from isolation to join the alliance. Each new member brought unique knowledge and capabilities. Admiral Clark established the Galactic Peace Corps with headquarters on Luna, where Captain Morrison served as the first human ambassador to the Confederation. His job was to mediate disputes between member species and coordinate responses to external threats. The USS Unity became the flagship of humanity's Guardian Fleet as it patrolled Confederation space, ensuring that no species could dominate or exploit others. Human AI systems monitored thousands of worlds simultaneously and could deploy forces anywhere they were needed within hours. Years passed, and the story of humanity's rise became legend throughout the galaxy. Children of many species learned about the war that ended Caltharian expansion and established a new era of cooperation among the stars on a Caltharian educational world. A young student named Zekthul asked his teacher what lesson the war had taught their people. The elderly instructor thought carefully before answering with words that had become famous throughout Confederation space. Never mistake quiet strength for weakness, and never underestimate a species that turns every challenge into an opportunity to become stronger. The humans had appeared weak because they chose to seem that way, but their true power lay in their ability to adapt and overcome any obstacle. The student nodded thoughtfully as he looked up at the stars where human ships maintained their eternal vigil. The galaxy was safer now because one species had proven that cooperation was stronger than conquest, and that freedom was worth any price. Admiral Clark stood in her garden on Luna and watched Earth rise over the horizon while thinking about how much had changed since first contact. Humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as guardians protecting the innocent and preserving peace. The war that the Caltherans had started to demonstrate their superiority had instead proven that underestimating human determination was the most dangerous mistake any species could make. Now that lesson was remembered throughout the galaxy as a warning to those who might threaten the innocent. The 72-hour deadline was almost over when Admiral Clark activated Operation Sleeping Giant from her command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. What the Caltherans had seen during the Battle of Mars was only the surface of human military capability. The real weapons had been hidden for decades, waiting for exactly this moment. All across the solar system, secret installations came online as their stealth systems powered down. The Caltherans had been monitoring human space for months, but their sensors had completely missed the massive defensive network that Admiral Clark had been building since first contact protocols were established. General Pete Collins commanded the asteroid belt fortifications from his base inside the largest rock in the Ceres cluster. His facility contained manufacturing plants that had been producing advanced weapons for 3 years, using designs that combined human engineering with recovered alien technology from ancient crash sites. The first surprise came when Caltharian sensors detected energy signatures appearing throughout the solar system. Bases that had been invisible suddenly blazed with power as fusion reactors came to full output. Fleet Admiral Kexrion stared at his tactical displays in confusion as dozens of new targets appeared on his screens. Captain Laura Stone commanded the USS Defiance, which had been disguised as a damaged hulk floating near the moon. When the ship powered up, its true nature was revealed. This was the first warship designed around an artificial intelligence core that could process tactical data faster than any organic brain. The Caltharians had abandoned artificial intelligence. Research centuries ago after a war with their own machines nearly destroyed their civilization. Most galactic species considered AI technology too dangerous to develop. Humans had taken the opposite approach and embraced machine intelligence as their greatest advantage. Dr. Kevin Martinez worked from Luna Research Station, where he had spent 5 years developing humanity's secret weapon, nanite swarms that could adapt and evolve in real time. These microscopic machines were designed to infiltrate enemy systems and learn how to defeat them from the inside. The nanites had been programmed with every piece of intelligence gathered about Caltharian technology during the diplomatic meetings. They knew the energy frequencies of alien shields, the quantum signatures of their tunnel drives, and the molecular structure of their hull materials. Admiral Clark gave the order to begin Phase 1 of the counterattack. Captain Stone launched the Defiance directly at the Caltharian flagship while broadcasting a surrender message. To Kexrion, it looked like one damaged human ship was approaching to formally give up the fight. The Void Render's weapon systems tracked the approaching vessel but held fire since it appeared to be surrendering. This was exactly what Admiral Clark had planned. The Defiance came within 1,000 kilometers of the alien dreadnought before suddenly changing course and launching every missile it carried. The missiles were not explosive warheads but delivery systems for Dr. Martinez's nanite swarms. Millions of microscopic machines impacted against Caltharian shields and immediately began analyzing the energy patterns they encountered. Within minutes, the nanites had learned how to pass through the barriers without triggering defensive systems commander. Nancy Foster was piloting one of the Defiance's fighters when she received orders for what appeared to be a suicide mission. She was to ram her ship directly into the Void Render's command section, while the nanites disabled its shields. Foster accepted the mission without hesitation. Her fighter streaked toward the massive alien ship, while Caltharian point defense systems tried to stop her. The nanites had reached the enemy weapons by then and were causing targeting errors that allowed Foster to slip through the defensive fire. Her ship impacted against the dreadnought's hull and appeared to explode. But the explosion was actually a cover for the deployment of specialized nanites designed to infiltrate the ship's internal systems. These machines spread through the Void Render's corridors and began systematically dismantling critical components. Within an hour, the mighty flagship went completely dark. The psychological impact on the Caltharian fleet was devastating. Their most powerful ship had been neutralized by what looked like a primitive human fighter. Fleet Admiral Kexrayan could not understand how his advanced shields and armor had failed so completely against such a simple attack. Admiral Clark chose that moment to spring the second part of her trap. Hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt revealed themselves as their camouflage fields dropped. Massive railguns that had been built into the rocks themselves began firing projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic bombardment caught the Caltharian fleet completely off guard. Their ships had been designed to defend against energy weapons and plasma cannons, but solid projectiles moving at such incredible speeds overwhelmed their defensive systems. 3 enemy cruisers were destroyed in the first salvo. General Collins coordinated the artillery barrage from his command center while watching tactical displays that showed the true scope of human preparations. Hundreds of weapon platforms were hidden throughout the solar system, and all of them were controlled by artificial intelligence systems that could coordinate attacks perfectly. Captain Tony Rodriguez had survived the destruction of his ship during the Mars battle and been given command of a new vessel, the USS Vengeance. This ship was equipped with adaptive armor that could reconfigure itself based on incoming threats and weapon systems that learned from each engagement. The Caltharian fleet tried to regroup near Jupiter, but found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Human ships appeared and disappeared using stealth technology that was completely invisible to alien sensors. Each attack was more precise than the last as AI systems learned enemy patterns. Commander Ashley Bell led a squadron of stealth frigates in hit-and-run attacks against isolated Caltharian ships. Her vessels could appear from nowhere, strike with devastating effect, and vanish before the enemy could respond. The aliens had never faced opponents who could become invisible at will. Dr. Monica Shaw had been studying Caltharian psychology from intercepted communications and discovered weaknesses in their mental conditioning. She developed audio frequencies that triggered panic responses in the reptilian brain structure. Human ships began broadcasting these signals during combat. The effect was immediate and terrifying for the Caltharian crews. Warriors who had conquered multiple worlds suddenly found themselves overwhelmed by irrational fear. Ship formations broke apart as individual captains fled in random directions, trying to escape the psychological assault. Fleet Admiral Kexrayan watched his disciplined fleet dissolve into chaos as ship after ship reported systems failures, crew panics, and impossible human attacks. The species he had dismissed as primitive was demonstrating technology and tactics that defied everything he understood about warfare. The Caltharans attempted one final desperate assault directly against Earth itself, but discovered that the planet was protected by an interconnected network of defense platforms. Every missile they fired was intercepted by systems that seemed to predict their trajectory before they were even launched. High Commander Zex Thul demanded explanations for how humans had hidden such advanced capabilities during their diplomatic meetings. The answer was simple. They had been preparing for this war since the day they learned aliens existed and had used misdirection to make their enemies underestimate them completely. As the surviving Caltharian ships fled the solar system, Admiral Clark allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had not just survived first contact with a hostile alien empire, they had proven that underestimating human ingenuity and determination was a fatal mistake that no enemy would make twice.